Hello. If someone could give me a thumbs up that you can actually see and hear me.
I can confirm that, Tom.
Well, we have an appropriate topic today, and that is technology adoption. We had a little bit of a technology issue this morning, so here we are. I guess that's a dramatic entrance to a very important topic. So anyway, my apologies for technology issues today. So anyway, I'm obviously a little bit flustered here because we like to get these things started on time. So my apologies for starting late. I'm glad to see so many of you are still with us today. Welcome to week 66 of our weekly financial roundtable. Remember, money is not the most important thing in life, but it is like oxygen on the gotta have it scale. So I'm Tom Kuhn. I'm your host and curator of these sessions. I'm from Qnity. We're here to help you not only earn more money, but do what you love and have a great quality of life. And to go from what's complicated, confusing, and overwhelming to a more simple path to prosperity. Going simple, visual, and actionable. So we know to prosper, we need to manage our ATM, our attention, time, and money. And I want to personally thank you for spending the time with us today. Our last guest, which was 2 weeks ago, was Win Claybaugh. And if you have not listened to that episode, please do listen to it. It was full of inspiration, full of wisdom. It was really, really amazing. So check it out. Today, we've got a couple of great guests, and I'm also going to let you know about a deep curiosity that has come inside me and many other in the beauty industry, and that has to do with technology. So we're going to be talking a little bit more in future episodes about beauty and tech. This week's guest is Jason Facio from Allowance in Nashville. And we also have joining us Josh Howard, the CEO of Vish. Josh has been with us as a guest before. We'll get to that in a little bit, okay? We hope you have some light bulb moments today and a couple announcements here or reminders. Remember, 9grid is there to help you mind map, keep notes, etc. for our session today. It's a great visual thinking tool, capture light bulb moments. We have been talking about Beauty Changes Lives and the opportunity to get involved in this great nonprofit. We are looking for some mentors. We need a handful more mentors. Several of you have thrown your hat in the ring. If you're interested, send me an email on that and I'll let you know what's involved. Basically, it's an hour a month for 6 months to make the difference and make an impact in an individual and do your part to help make beauty a first choice career. We have had an amazing brain trust, and we're going to invite a couple of new members. Well, Jason will be a new member of the brain trust. Josh will be a repeat member here. We have been showing this visual, and every single week I say, my gosh, this is just a fraction of the people involved. And now we've got more updated visuals showing the many members of this brain trust. So many of you contributed. We're going to keep adding. The collective wisdom by this group inspires all of us, present company included here. I do want to make sure that you have some dates on your calendar. Please pull out your calendar, May 15th through 17th. You will start to hear more and more about this. On May 15th, in Scottsdale, we will be celebrating 2 years of light bulb moments. It'll be in Scottsdale, Arizona. It'll be also have a fundraising element to that as it relates to Beauty Changes Lives. We're going to be celebrating all members of our brain trust, and we're going to be awarding some special light bulb recognitions. So keep that on the calendar. That will be part of a new annual summit that we're going to be starting next year in Scottsdale, May 16th and 17th, called the Fill. And this will be the inaugural event. Do not miss this. You'll have an opportunity to fill your bucket and fill the gaps in your business. Gaps are really the difference between your current reality and your potential. So super excited about that. You'll be hearing more about that. So that will be a way to have light bulb moments on steroids by bringing our community together and creating a forum for all of us to gather and celebrate and learn. So I have been just increasingly curious about the technology and beauty. And, I, growing up in the beauty industry or different generations, it's the manufacturers, the product manufacturers really were the ones that had the money, okay, had a lot of clout, still do, certainly a very necessary part of the equation here. But technology in the beauty industry has, there's no secret. There's innovation in all industries, including the beauty industry. And I've become increasingly aware of the technology companies in beauty and the impact they're starting to make, as well as the money behind them. One organization has had $330 million just within the last few years put into a POS company. Another company had 48 million. MindBody was just valued at 1 billion. Vagaro was just valued at 1 billion. And there's a tremendous amount of capital behind these POS companies, as well as what I'd call specialty technology companies. And I am really curious to dig deeper into these companies. And one of the ways I'm going to do that is I'm going to start to invite the principals to be part of the conversation. We're going to get to know who the CEOs or the owners of these organizations are, because they have a lot of research, a lot of data, a lot of information. They're sort of in a little bit in the background. You see them on the circuit at the shows and all of that, but we want to get a little bit more into that. So anyway, with that, we're going to introduce the topic of technology, and in particular, it's technology adoption using one technology company, that's Vish. We're pleased to have Josh, the CEO, with us today. And Jason is the owner of Element in Tennessee. Jason has 4 locations, very successful business. Jason stays a little bit in the background. He runs a great business. I've had the pleasure to work with Jason over the last year on some projects. Jason also was part of his first 2 to 10 this year. Super smart guy, great guy. Jason, you want to come on mic? And can we see you? Good morning. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you? Can you hear me?
See if we can get your voice coming there.
I can hear Jason.
You can?
Yes.
I can't hear you yet. Meanwhile, let's bring Josh in there. Josh, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. You can't hear me either?
Okay, maybe I'm the one that is missing some sound here, so bear with me a second, guys. My technology issues might be cascading.
Jason, could you, when Tom was talking earlier, could you see me up there?
All right, I can
yeah.
now hear you. All right, so I might have been the last one of the party. My gosh, what a fiasco today, guys. Jeez. Jason, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
You didn't realize you're going to have a 10-minute hold time to begin with. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
Good. Doing well. All's good. Thank you.
And we find you in Nashville today.
Yes, sir.
Josh, how are you today?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
And you are in Canada today, I take it?
Yeah, I'm in St. John's, Newfoundland.
All right, so you're out in the Maritime provinces.
Not technically the Maritimes, but
What's that?
it's not technically considered the Maritime provinces. It's on the east coast of Canada. Anyways, it's a misconception. We are an island on our own. We're part of the Atlantic Canada, but not part of the Maritimes.
All right. Well, regardless, we're glad you're with us today. I am going to make mention that, Josh, you appeared as a guest before on October 7th, along with your partner and brother, Tim. And we also had you as a guest on February 3rd. All right. So for those of you that want to learn a little bit more about Vish and a little deeper dive into the platform, all the features, et cetera, I recommend you go to YouTube and in particular, check out the October 7th, 2020 session that we did together. Josh, you and Tim did a great job at that. We learned a lot about Vish, about color and profitability, et cetera. And, we also had some slides about Vish. so on and so forth. So anyway, but today, let's change the conversation here. And let's talk a little bit about not just Vish, but the adoption of a technology platform like that. And Jason, as spoiler alert, you had the light bulb moment yesterday. Sort of like you dropped the mic moment that really, really stuck with you. So I'm going to get into that moment. But Josh, first of all, tell us a little bit about Vish, what it does, what it doesn't do in your own words.
It's a platform, the design of it originally was to eliminate hair color waste. It's a problem that everybody identifies in this industry. So we created an iPad application that syncs with the Bluetooth scale that mimics the current workflow as closely as possible. So, if you're using a scale in your salon today, you can seamlessly integrate Vish, and it basically replaces the paper and pen. And then, the POS partners that you mentioned, we're integrated with those, and we take all this information. So, it started about hair color waste, but then it quickly became more about giving owners actionable insights and making sure that the front desk was aware of what services were mixed and how much color was applied and how much of an extra product charge should be added. So we found, we thought this was around eliminating hair color waste, but we found out that the system of people using paper travelers or using the POS in some instances and relying on the stylist to communicate the appropriate information was just broken, and it really needed to be addressed with technology.
So from a financial standpoint, where does this change things financially for a salon? Does it change it just through lower costs, or does it also affect revenue top line?
Well, it goes from both angles. So the waste reduction, people throw away about 30% of their inventory. The highest I've seen is 50% of the hair colors going down the drain. And then the color service revenue, there's from a couple ways we increase revenue. So we actually reduce the amount of redos that are needed to be done because we record all of the formulas, store them to 1/10 of a gram, so the formulas are more accurate. And then the increase in revenue, it's very challenging. I mean, Jason, I was looking at your data yesterday, and in one of your salons, I think it was 12th Street, had 142 add-on glosses mixed in Vish, and that was pushed to the front desk. So it's really hard to put a number on how much it increases revenue because, if you're not capturing it before, it makes it challenging. But, we estimate it's 5 to 15% increase in color service revenue.
Yeah, if I can jump in there just a minute, the amount of glosses that would go by without getting charged was just amazing and mind blowing. I mean, people don't realize how stylists sometimes will just, mix a gloss, throw it on and forget to add it to the ticket or, and that happens more frequently than we think it does. Vish stops that. Because of Vish, you have to measure, you have to go through Vish. And so that gets to the front desk and it gets charged every single time. So that's one way in which it increases revenue, is that you charge for every single thing that you do because you're measuring everything that you're using.
And Jason, you had a $3 charge on both services, your cuts and your colors, right? And we looked at that, and by switching into actually charging for the amount of color that was needed, and you eliminated the $3 charge on the cuts, that's made a drastic impact on your bottom line as well, right?
Huge impact, yeah. Yeah, so I was charging $3 for every single service. A gloss had $3, and all that went to the bottom line to pay for the supplies. And we removed that completely. Actually, when we came back from COVID, we removed the fee completely. And because we knew we were going to use more inventory, we just told people, we're only going to charge you exactly what you use. So actually our haircuts went down $3, our blowouts went down $3, and then our color went for however much they use. So if you didn't use much color, it could be, a $5 charge, it could be a $3 charge. But yeah, it worked out really well.
So this is technology that Josh, you perfected through the years. And of course, you got a lot of great testimonials and success stories, of course, like Jason. And what I maintain is the reason many people don't go forward with this, and you talked about, we know there's a problem, there's a solution to the problem, but why don't people act, is the technology adoption piece. The adoption seems overwhelming. It seems like it's one more thing to do. And Jason, you had a light bulb moment yesterday with me, and we're big believers in simplicity. And
Yeah.
behavior change is not easy. And this does require some behavior change. It's not like you can just plug a piece of technology in and then put your feet up and everything happens. There is things that need to happen.
Yeah.
And I had a long conversation this with clients and friends out at Lords and Ladies. Good morning to all of you, Lords and Ladies, by the way. And we talked about change and how hard it is to bring change. You just nailed this ship. So to the punchline, what's the light bulb moment here?
I think the big question to ask whenever I'm incorporating new technology, which is a lot. I incorporate a lot of new technology. I have a ton. I mean, that's what I look for, because I think that's where the next money is going to come from, is new technology. And so the question I ask is, what are the behaviors that we need to change to adopt this technology? So I kind of close my eyes and think of the stylist, you know, from beginning to finish the cycle, and what's different in order for this technology to work and for this to be profitable. And when I talked, I mean, I looked at different waste management softwares, and when I talked to Josh about it, he told me there's only one behavior to change, and it's the reweigh. So I don't know do you want to explain what the reweigh is, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple, the one step. So we spent a lot of time in salons developing the technology, so it was easy to build a formula, and then you're mixing color the same way you normally would. But the reweigh is a step that we introduced, and you just take the waste at the end of the session, and then you put the bowl back on the scale. So then the next time that guest comes in, the formulas are augmented, so we remove the waste. So rather than most people starting off with 40 grams of color or an ounce and a half of color plus developer for a new growth application, well, you can actually, maybe you only need 22 grams for someone with short regrowth. So it becomes customizable to the individual. And it's very, very simple. It only takes a second. It really doesn't, it's not a massive behavior change. But one thing that we have found, and we were forced to do a lot of our training online over the pandemic, and Jason, we were successful in your salon, I think. And even Susan from Studio B is on the call as well. Anybody that has a big organization, like, you need an educator on site. And it's not to teach them how to use the technology. It is simply to remove the fear. So we built, if I could show someone how to use our system in 5 minutes, would you put a piece of technology behind the color bar without rolling it out properly, or without them getting to buy-in, is they're going to go back to their previous workflow. So technology is, you know, we can make it as simple as possible, but unless your staff are saying, okay, we need to do this. So everybody in this call, I mean, they have big organizations, they know how to run their business. It's like anything else that you change in your salon, it requires buy-in from your staff.
Yeah. So I get a dashboard. The other really good thing is I get a dashboard from Vish. And so I sit down with every single one of my stylists once a month for 15 minutes, right? One-on-ones or PDMs or whatever you want to call them. And I sit down with every single one once a month, and I show them metrics, right? Which, you know, we all know what the KPIs are. I added to the metrics reweigh. So every chance I get, I celebrate a stylist that has 90% reweigh. So every week we do a huddle, and in the huddle, we announce 3 metrics: retail, rebook, and reweigh, right? And the huddle is with everybody. So you get the chance as a stylist to have your name mentioned and celebrated in a huddle before your shift because you just reweighed. I mean, it's not very difficult to do. And people get excited about it, and then they want to rank in the top 3. And so that's one way. It's always through celebration that we get people to adopt this stuff, through, you know, joy and celebration and good job and well done, as opposed to wagging the finger, I can't believe you're wasting this much and all that kind of stuff. You know, that doesn't lead us to a positive place. So using the positive force of, you know, celebrating people who are reweighing, that gets them to do it. And I never talk about waste. I never once mention waste. I'm charging for waste. The clients are paying for it. So it's, you know, it's not a financial loss to me anymore. It's measured. I know how much it is. It's on the dashboard. So I know exactly what it is. We've had this technology for 2 years. And next year, so in January, is when we're going to start maybe a conversation about waste with anyone who is above 30% waste. So, because the dashboard has a line for each stylist and it shows you how much each person weighs. So anyone who's above 30% waste, I'm going to have a conversation with them just to show them what it is. And they start wanting to improve and wanting to do better. So it's not easy. It just takes consistency, just like everything in life, for success, you need to be consistent. So it's all about, consistently reminding them of this one metric and getting excited about it. It's pretty amazing stuff.
So in sitting in a leadership meeting yesterday and with a bunch of dynamic leaders and looking at priorities and looking at all the different options of things where we can invest our attention, time, and money, which is limited. I don't want it to be lost on anybody here, the nugget of simplicity around behavior change. And that was the drop the mic. That was, and it's a moment that should be savored as great wine, that all you have to do is reweigh. One behavior change. We are, this is an overwhelmed market with more and more to do. And that's the piece that really jumped out at me. And Jason, I think you're the one that, earned that. Josh, your technology, obviously, you're a smart guy. You've done a great job. You got a lot of fans. But at the end of the day, it's got to be implemented. And Jason, so if I'm able to think, there's only one thing you have to make sure when you adopt this is make sure that people reweigh. And then the tracking of it and using it in a celebratory way. So I want to draw that line out, I want to draw that point out maybe at the point of ad nauseum for our listeners today. But truly, that's the X factor. And guys, tell me if you agree in the chat, Jason, back to the point you were just making about not talking about waste.
Yeah.
Let's unpack that a little bit more too, okay?
Yeah. So I think our industry has had a problem with waste. We all know this, right? I mean, I've been in this industry for 20 years. We did everything. We told our people, I want you to throw all your waste in this bucket, and it's this transparent bucket. And then by the end of the week, I show them this big bucket with all this color, and can you believe all this is going to the trash? And when you talk to a group of people about waste, they're all thinking, yeah, no, I can't believe that. But no one thinks I did it. They all think, yeah, someone is doing something wrong, right? So this fixes that. This gives us a tool to measure. We know exactly where it's going, who's doing it. And there is a temptation to wag fingers and to sit down one-on-one with someone and tell them, listen, your waste is at 30%. And then the tool, then I think that the stylist will build resentment towards the tool because you're using the tool to, bang them over the head with it. So if instead of that, you look at the people who are doing it well and you bring attention to them and you celebrate them every chance you get, you talk about them in your huddles, in your meetings, in your one-on-ones, you're always celebrating the people who are hitting it. As long as you're focusing on the people who are succeeding and celebrating them, I think the rest will try, well, at least in my culture, the rest have tried to reach for that. So that's how it made sense for me to do.
I think it's a absolute case study in technology adoption, and I love it.
Yeah.
Josh,
But one point that we'd like to kind of emphasize as well. I mean, a couple of points really. I mean, it's 2021, almost 2022. I mean, the environmental impact is pretty large as well. Even if you're using Green Circle, they still have to get someone to pick it up. They still have to incinerate it. And if you're not using Green Circle, you're pouring harmful chemicals back in the waterways. But, I'm not the stylist. My brother was a stylist, came up with this idea and owned a salon for 20 years. I mean, this was originally designed to give data back to the owners so you can actually start building education. If you're wasting, because we show you what you're wasting it on as well. So if you're over mixing for your half head highlights, you're over mixing for your balayage, might be a time to get an application class and to kind of share, okay, if there's someone in your salon that's very efficient, well, what are they doing differently with the application? They're not oversaturating the hair, because the client outcome is the most important part here, right? So we use this data as well to make actionable insights back into the salon.
You know, Jason, you or Josh, you brought up a couple of really big topics that we will be unpacking in the future. One is sustainability, and the sustainability element and the beauty industry and impact. And there are some movements going around to organize some of the people most interested in sustainability in the beauty industry and going a little deeper into that. The other thing that you started to explore was data. And you're a data guy. You love data. You capture data, and the beauty industry is sorely lacking of data. Back to hair color here, which, by the way, I just was part of a recent PBA executive summit, and there was some research, and hair color continues to be the #1 growth category. High gross margin, high sales growth, you know, and you know, so this is a hugely important topic. When you look at the metrics around hair color, Josh, which you have a lot of them, you threw a few out, 30% waste, et cetera. Share a few more of the metrics around hair color, because I'd consider you to be in the short list of experts in this in North America, at least. So.
Yeah, I would say that we actually have the only aggregated data source for color consumption globally. Nobody has the data that we have. One of the biggest things, so we have something, and it's called product allowance. So you ask this, and Jason has actually moved beyond this and just separating it all together. But early stages, people don't want to change their pricing structure. So what they do, we ask them, how much do you budget for a new growth application? They'll say 40 grams color plus developer. And then half it high, let's go down the list of all the different service types. Overall, in about 1,000 locations, over budget by 50%. So what they're telling us of what the product allowances should be, they're over mixing by 50%. And you can actually see this in the salon. If you're an owner, or if you've been there for a while, or more senior, or more connected to the bottom line, you're using half as much or 1/3 as amount of color as somebody else in your location. So and that got lost before, because we would look at it and you would look at your average cost per application, or you would look at that professional product should be 6% of total service sales. And that was giving salon owners the only ability to run a profitable business by looking at it from a macro scale. But you can actually look at the individual users and the individual stylists. That data is quite powerful. Other pieces of data that I found quite interesting is some of the luxury lines. And the one thing that what I thought was interesting. And I don't want to choose any favorites, but some of the more expensive lines, or some of the more luxurious lines, like the more boutique-y, have the perception that they're more expensive. You know, but there's some of these lines that they really care about sustainability, and they spend a lot of time on a lot of education, and their cost per application is actually lower. And it's interesting across the variance across all the color lines, but they all be very similar price for a tube of color, but the application methods are so much different.
You know, we've got some really great comments here. Marsha Power, good morning, Marsha from Texas. Good to see you on here with us. Jason, who did the bucket for a month, it equaled 90,000 a year. Sue Aarons, good morning, Sue. Your name already came out. Good to see you here. Yes, the key was having Casey. Casey's a member of Josh's team. Casey's great. Having her on site, she's amazing. Launched 2 before travel. And I'm trying to look. Celebration is huge. There are some questions, Josh, that you can just enter in the chat regarding who you integrate with, et cetera. Jason, you've been doing this for 2 years now. And have you measured the impact, top and bottom line, on this? Are you able to estimate?
Well, it's been a bit different, because I think the way that I incorporated it to my business was different than what most did. I changed. So basically, if you think of the mechanic industry, they will charge you for fixing your car, the labor, and they will charge you for the parts, right? Separately. When you go there, you know how much you paid in parts and how much you paid in labor. So I took that model and I used it for color and labor. So when you check out of my salon, you'll get a bill that says your service, hair or hair color, whatever it was, and then it says supply. And so you have the cost of the supply. So I've separated that out completely, and it's made a pretty big difference because I've been able to mark up the color a little bit. So I'm generating revenue with basically with every single service sale. I have a retail sale now, right? Because I'm selling. So I had to contact my color supplier and tell them, hey, we need to mark up the color. I need to sell it to me as supply, which means that the taxes for my color are now going to the guest and not to me, because I'm selling it as retail every single time. So I'm not paying taxes on color supply. I have a markup on my color. So it's generating revenue, not just paying for itself, but also generating revenue. And I've separated it. So it's not part of the service. So I'm not, paying commission on it. It's through Vish. Someone asked if for the software that I have, which is Forest, it goes straight from the color bar. It shoots the information to my front desk. So there's no necessity to communicate through any other means other than just finishing it in the iPad. And then that gets sent to the front desk to check.
Yeah, just explain a little bit differently. The way that the POS companies, and this is the same integration with also, the Vish has a widget that sits on top of Forest or sits on top of Nebo or SalonViz, whatever the case, and they look at it as a reference point. Even if we do integrate further, very few POS companies are going to open up the ticket because there's financial transactions. So it sits on top of Forest at all times. We will look to innovate that differently, but it just becomes a workflow thing. Look at it 100% of the time and update the ticket. It doesn't take any time, and it increases the accuracy, of course.
Yeah.
Jason, back to technology adoption. So you changed your pricing mechanism, and that was what, 2 years ago then at that time? That was when we first put it in place, we did not change the pricing. We left it on until COVID. When we came back from COVID, that's when we're like, listen, we're having to buy double the inventory to take care of you because you've been gone for 2 months. So we're going to charge you for exactly what we use. And so when we came back from COVID, never waste a crisis. We had the opportunity to split labor from parts and use Vish the way I think was the smartest way to use it, the most profitable way to use it, which was this splitting of labor and parts and make it make sense. So that makes total sense. It's another change though. Yeah. And it's another change that needs to be managed with not only customers, but with staff.
Yeah.
So back to technology adoption, and I'm thinking of people that are interested in doing this and might get stuck on, the pricing piece is something, we're pretty ingrained in our pricing to do all the brain damage of re-educating. That seems like that seems daunting to me.
Yeah, it is work. It is a lot of work. You do have to guide people and have consistency and talk to them and show them the numbers and, just ask them, what's going on? How's it going? Why are you not measured? Working through it. It is work for sure. And it can be daunting, but we are constantly improving and constantly looking for change and constantly trying to lead the industry. And I think if you wrap that into your culture and you make it part of your communication consistently at every meeting and you're talking about it, I think it becomes part of your identity. And then, I think my stylist, for example, Monday was 2 days ago, we started Green Circle salons. It's December, there's a lot happening and they are so excited about it. There's, trash cans everywhere and we're doing all the things and they're so excited about it. They love implementing new things. We do SnapSnip as technology. We use SnapSnip. We use Meet Your Stylist. We use Vish, Forest. we use a lot of technology, and I'm always looking for technology that's going to help improve and grow. So yeah.
And just to add on to that, as Jason mentioned, he didn't change his pricing right away. But to your comment, Tom, about data, once you have the data, and then I asked him about the $3 charge, and they say, okay, well, if we remove these $3 charges, we can forecast out what that actual impact will be. So we can show you that, because if you look, a lot of people don't know what their actual cost per application is. And if we can look and say, well, your average, looking at the data, you're using $10 worth of product on your glosses. But if you talk to some of the color lines, they'll suggest that you're using $5, right? So when you get the data, so what we do is when we onboard salons, we onboard, we train the staff, we train the stylists, and then you have a 30-day data review, a 60-day data review, and a 90-day data review. So we look in your first assumptions. Is what we do. We do not try to change anybody's pricing at the gate. We say, how do you charge your clients? We'll put a system in place and make sure that happens 100% of the time. So there's an uplift there. But then after 30 days, we'll be like, okay, you should probably change that again, because you're actually missing more potential revenue than you think. And this is a high volume business. So you're just shifting the emphasis from the client, from the stylist to the clients, and they don't notice the difference. I think the average increase in ticket is $4.14. But then, so Jason called me a couple of weeks ago, and I think that's a relationship that I think is very important for us. Like, my cell phone's available to our clients. Jason doesn't, we encourage, people to go through support and stuff. But Jason, he has a question, he texts me, we go back and forth. He had an increase. L'Oreal increased their prices per tube of color for 18 cents. So if that happens to anybody who doesn't have a piece of technology in place to manage this, that's just okay, cool. I just lost margin because my prices went up, and I'm not going to go change all my service menu prices because there was a pricing change. And we know this happens once, maybe twice a year. So if you increase your service menu, you're going to get hit a couple times with the price increases without increasing that impact. But Jason, we increased the price in his back end, and then we increased the margin. So L'Oreal increased their prices because they needed to make more money because of inflation. Jason was able to recoup that and some, so make more profit as well.
Yep.
I'm sold, and I'm still in the trenches with my audience here. And so admire you, Jason, for really putting a stake in the ground with technology. We are going to be technology leaders. And I would encourage all the participants on here to take a fresh look at technology and technology adoption, because you're going to be left behind otherwise. And I would argue that looking at 2022, you pick anywhere between 2 and 4 different technology integrations that's going to help your business, because financially, this is a financial roundtable, is those that do implement and execute, the Jasons of the world, will be the ones that will lead the next generation of salons. So yes, Josh, I love your technology. You've been, we love what you do. You're a great guy. We support you and your brother, and I'm a big fan. Me, as a guide in the beauty and what I do in the beauty industry, and really looking at the platform, I'm just really trying to poke the bear here a little bit with our audience and say, we really need to get through the technology adoption issue and figure out how to manage change with our team, which is not easy. It's not easy. And we had this long conversation, Jason, with our friends at Lords and Ladies about, making a change with their staff. We spent an hour just talking about how we're going to make this very simple change. It's the reality.
Yeah, another thing I'd like to mention.
And by the way, comments here. I mean, am I out of line, guys? Let's use the chat here. I mean, how's technology adoption going for all of you? So,
yeah. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh well, it'll come back. Happens.
Well, I did
So,
cut you off. So,
seeing this is a financial round, I know I was talking to a colleague, Paul Tate. I was with L'Oreal for a long period of time. And I think you said the number, when you correct for this salary of the owner who's behind the chair, the average margin is 4.9%. Is that profit margin? Is that somewhere accurate, Tom?
I've got data from 2 to 10 that shows 5.0, 5.1. We're talking a nickel.
Yeah, so 5%. So, you take that in $1 million salon, which I know a lot of organizations do a lot more than that, but take $1 million for, that's $50,000 profit. One thing that I always find interesting is every salon owner knows they're wasting product. Every salon owner knows they're giving away services. We have the solution for it. And you're talking about $1 million salon, can pretty well guarantee if you do this properly, you put another $50,000 of profit on your bottom line. So if you're going to double your profit margin, because we're not talking about bringing in new clients, we're not talking about spending more marketing dollars, we're talking about stop throwing away your inventory. if your staff threw away 30% of your retail, you'd fire them on the spot, right? Obviously, it's not their fault that they're wasting color, but I always find it very interesting that I talk to a lot of salon owners that recognize that they have a problem. I'm obviously biased, but I think we have a pretty good solution. And they said, we're going to wait 6 months. So you're going to continue to lose profit. Why wait? And I think that is, from our standpoint, why we're really leaning into on-site education. So I just hired 3 more hair color educators. So we have like 4 in total, plus my brother's just 5 now. We will do the heavy lifting, but you need buy-in from the staff. And last I'm gonna say with this, but like, we have the solution, we'll onboard it pretty seamlessly. The technology does a good job. And one thing we've really seen a lot of salon owners use this technology for is getting buy-in from the staff. And I mentioned to this Tom, yesterday, where if you increase everybody's commission on this, and Jason, that's why you recoup this cost, it doesn't really wow them. It doesn't really excite them. But if you can get everybody, we've seen salons contribute to 401ks or to contribute to health benefits from the additional profit that they get from Vish. That's one way we've seen it, full buy-in. It's like, hey, we're going to increase your 401k. Or there's another salon that I was working with that, they want to do a retreat with education. And that's something that they're buying in, because the stylists, and we know that booth renting is a movement that a lot of commission-based salon owners don't want to deal with, are afraid to deal with. Offer them more than they can do on their own. And you have a group of a bunch of stylists in your salon. Find a way to unify everybody to give them something that they couldn't do as a booth renter, which is, these group benefits and whatnot.
Yeah, it's the what's in it for me question, right? That the owners want to know what's in it for the stylist so that we can sell it to the stylist. Sometimes, because you have to know what's in it for them. And I think this is a great, like when I launched it 2 years ago, because of your advice, I started a 401k match. And that's one of the things that's in it for the stylist, right? Is that now we have a 401k match because of Vish. And that means you have to change your behavior in this way, and it's not a big deal. And everyone gets on board and does it. But if I love the idea of having a what's in it for me thing for the stylist, so that you can help get them on board. And then when you introduce the technology and you're measuring the reweigh and you're making sure that everyone is participating at 90% reweigh every single month, they want to use Vish. Like it's a retention tool. It becomes a retention tool. If they don't want to go to another salon that doesn't have Vish, it's just they want, because that's how they got used to using it. And it's, once you get used to using it, it becomes a habit. It's difficult to go back to not using it. So that's another positive thing that just happens.
Well, it's been great to have both you guys today. And we are going to be looking at technology adoption and other technologies in the future. And this is a good sort of launch into this topic that is not just about Vish, not just about hair color, but about technology and technology adoption and how important that's going to be as we look at the future in our businesses. I think Christine Griffith, good morning, Christine. The resistance to the tech change seems, in our experience, to be coming from service providers and not having time. Perhaps it's a bigger conversation for us to have with you, Josh. Appreciate the conversation. All right, guys, our time is up. And Josh, I am pleased to award you your second $1 million light bulb. Thank you for your light bulb moments today. Jason, I believe this is your first one, right?
Yeah, sure.
Your first light bulb. Josh, I also want to congratulate you on your recent nuptials. You were not a 2 to 10 because you were getting married that weekend. So congratulations on that as a newlywed. And
Thank
Jason, thanks for joining us and for your insights. I think it's just spot on, man. Thank you for that. So great shares. I think you got a lot of shout outs there from our community here. Let me see. Yeah, let me just wrap up a couple different things. Oh, you know what I love doing the very most. And for some reasons, I haven't been doing it as much. And that is seeing who the heck's on the call here. All right. So who do we got here? We got a great group. Amanda B, Amanda Hare. Good morning, Amanda. Annie Wheeler. Candace, good morning from California. Hello, Cheyenne from New Mexico. We have a couple Christines, Christine from Texas and Christine from Florida. Hey, Connie and Jan, Joe and John. Morning, John, you joined us today. Jonathan, Casey, Karen, Carrie, Kelly, Lisa, Mark, Marcia, Megan. Hi, Megan. How are things in Tucson today? Hello, Melissa, Philip, Robert, Roberto, Sabrina from the Vish team. Hello, Sabrina. Sam, Scott, Steve Reese. Hi, Steve Reese, Sue Aarons, Terry McKee, and Trent Lang. Some of our favorite people, of course. I have not had a chance to look much at the chat. Let me just wrap up with a few other comments as we wrap up. Do list, if you want to learn more about Vish. Vish was an early sponsor on the Roundtable a year ago. Thank you for Josh. You helped us get it kicked off. Go back and listen to that episode for a little bit more detail about Vish and Josh and Tim. It was October 7th. We do have a second roundtable today. We're going to take a different angle on this. It's still going to be about hair color, but it's going to relate to the schools. And we're going to have Josh rejoining us with one of our favorites, and that is Heath Smith. So a very similar topic, just a different angle on it. I hope you got some light bulb moments. Make sure this might be your biggest light bulb moment. Put on your calendar, May 15th through 17th, the first of what will be an annual event called the Phil. And we will be celebrating all members of the Brain Trust, including these two gentlemen that were with us today, as well as the ones that will be joining us between now and next May. Yeah, it's going to be an awesome event. Closing thoughts. The bad news is time flies. The good news is you are the pilot. I hope all of you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I do apologize for my poor technology adoption and the late start. And we will see many of you next week. We are on next week. I think Michelle put something in the chat. Put it in there again, Michelle. I think we're going maybe the next 2 weeks. Then we're going to go on a holiday pause. We've got some great guests coming up as usual. And but we do appreciate all of you, and we'll see you next week. Jason and Josh, thanks again. Bye, everybody.